1 Kings 4. King Solomon ruled over all Israel. These were his officials. Azariah, son of Zadok, was the priest. Elahoreph and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha, wrote down what happened. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was in charge of the records. Benaiah, son of Jehoiah, was commander of the army. Zadok and Abithar were priests. Azariah, son of Nathan, was supervisor of the district of governors. Zabud, son of Nathan, was a priest and advisor to the king. Ahishur was supervisor of the palace. Adoniram, son of Abda, was supervisor of the work crews. Solomon had 12 district governors appointed throughout Israel, who acquired supplies for the king and his palace. Each was responsible for 1 month in the year. These were their names. Ben-Hur was in charge of the hill country of Ephraim. Ben-Decker was in charge of Makkah's, Shelebim, Beth-Shemesh, and Elan, Beth-Hanan. Okay, so I'm not, like, these are officials. They do some stuff. Why are the names there? Because we're talking about the establishment of Solomon's wisdom. So we're establishing his wisdom as he is putting up the infrastructure and everything of how he's going to rule. So we have all of that. So we had there are 12 districts. Each one is responsible for 1 month's provision for the year. Oh, that's wise. That's a great way of doing it. Ben also remains son. So Ben-Hur, son of Hur. Ben-Decker, son of Decker. Ben-Hesed, son of Hesed. Ooh, Hesed. Loyal love. Ooh, that's a great name to have someone. But we're getting all of these, so I'm not going to spend time. I'm not going to dive into these so much. It is the establishment of who they are. Also, if you're related to them, here are claims that you have of the people who are within the kingdom and your connection with them. I'm watching. Thank you for the lurk. So Ben-Hesed was in charge of Araboth. He controlled Sukkah and all the territory of Hepher. Ben-Aminadab was in charge of Nophah Dor. He was married to Solomon's daughter, Taphath. Okay, so we also have some names that we've heard before. So we're getting the sons of people that were in a previous administration are now having their children in the administration of the king. So if you were an advisor, you were doing the work under the father, you now are getting your sons put into places as they have learned from their fathers, perhaps. Baana, son of Ahilud, was in charge of Taanach and Megiddo, as well as all of Beth-Shean next to Zerath, below Jezreel, from Beth-Shean to Abel-Meholah, and on past Jokmeam. So if you know these areas, if you're living in them, they all make and are important to you. I don't, and so I can't keep them straight, and so we just move on. Ben-Geber was in charge of Ramoth Gilead. He controlled the villages of Jair, son of Manasseh, in Gilead. Sorry about that. As well as the region of Argob in Bashan, including 60 large walled cities with bronze bars locking their gates. Ahinadab, son of Edo, was in charge of Ahimaaz was in charge of Naphtali. He married Solomon's daughter, Basemath. Okay, so we're getting a couple of these also are marrying Solomon's daughters. Baana, son of Hushi, was in charge of Asher and Aleph. Jehoshaphat, son of Peruah, was in charge of Issachar. Shammai, son of Elah, was in charge of Benjamin. Geber, son of Uri, was in charge of the land of Gilead, the territory which had once belonged to King Sihon of the Amorites and King Og of Bashan. He was sole governor of the area. So we have the establishment of several of what was put in place, what people did. Okay. The people of Judah and Israel were as innumerable as the sands of the seashore. They had plenty to eat and drink and were happy. And that is where you have the break in chapter in the Hebrew version, because you can see verse 21 was the start of chapter 5. So we have the establishment of King Solomon, and we have a clue of a fulfillment of the promise made to Abraham, that your descendants will be as innumerable as the sands of the seashore. Don't run past this. The people of Judah and Israel under Solomon are as innumerable as the sands of the seashore. The promise of God has been fulfilled for the descendants part. We already had in the book of Joshua the statement that they had conquered all the land that the Lord had promised them. So we had the land promise, which is a sign of the people, is a sign of the promises. So when you see the fulfillment of this, it means that the rest is happening. So we have the land promise fulfilled in the book of Joshua. It tells us now we have the people innumerable as the sand of the seashore in being fulfilled here in the beginning of Kings. Being like the stars of heaven, maybe there's some places where we'll see that, but we're getting different pieces here throughout Scripture of the fulfillments of Abraham. This is a reminder of the promise and a point to the fulfillment of it. All right, so continuing. Solomon ruled all the kingdoms from the Euphrates to the land of Philistia as far as the border of Egypt. These kingdoms paid tribute to Solomon's subject throughout his lifetime. Each day, Solomon's royal court consumed 30 cores of finely milled flour, 60 cores of cereal, 10 calves fattened in the stall, 20 calves from the pasture, and 100 sheep, not to mention rams, gazelles, deers, and well-fed birds. Okay, so his royal court is eating this much. Now, what is a core? A unit of dry measure, a core, was roughly equivalent to 6 bushels. So if you know what a bushel is, you're probably more likely to see a half bushel than a full bushel. So let's see, that's 6. So that would be 180 bushels of flour a day. 180 bushels of flour. Oh my goodness. 360 bushels of cereal. How much cereal is 360? Like, is that like what grocery store have you ever gone to? Grab every single box of cereal on the shelves, bring it home, probably still not 360 bushels of cereal. 10 fatted calves in the stalls, 20 calves from the pasture, 100 sheep, not to mention rams, gazelles, deer, and well-fed birds. So here's the regular things. And then when they have rams and gazelle and deer and well-fed birds upon occasion. His royal cart was so large because he ruled over all the kingdoms west of the Euphrates River from Tifsash to Gaza. He was at peace with all his neighbors. So why is his royal court so big? Because there are officials that are from every one of those places. So think about, you have foreign dignitaries and you have foreign embassies in the world today. The ancient way of doing it was they were in the royal court. So people from that court would be here. People from my court are over there. You see this later played out in Greece before Alexander the Great. He is actually one of them, where Philip of Macedon sends his son to go live in the king of a neighboring section, and his son comes and lives with Philip of Macedon. You grow up in the household of a rival power. You grow up there as a deterrent for war to come against you, because we will kill your son, heir to the throne, if you come. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but I'm just saying that kind of an idea is prominent throughout, that you have people from one nation living in the other nation. If you go to war, your people end up dead. You send someone that will prevent you from going to war, or because you'll lose those people. So that's what we have going on, perhaps in the royal court. Don't know exclusively, but there are a large amount, because he's ruling over a lot of part. So there has to be some dignitaries from all of those neighbors that are there. All the people of Judah and Israel had security. Everyone from Dan to Beersheba enjoyed the produce of their vines and fig trees, throughout Solomon's life. Solomon had 4,000 stalls for his chariots, horses, and 12,000 horses. Okay, so we already had one thing that Solomon should not have been doing, marrying a foreign wife. Now we have him multiplying horses and chariots to himself, something a king is also not supposed to do. He is doing that. He's done a second thing that kings are not supposed to do. Thought he was supposed to be wise and discerning. He is able to discern between, and remember what he asked for, to discern judicially between things. He solved the problem that came to him. He was wise enough to solve that. It doesn't mean wise in the sense of everything he does in his life. He is wise in discerning on how to do things and how to solve problems. It doesn't mean he is unwise or so wise that he can't make mistakes in his own life, or he's so wise he cannot sin. Like, it does not tell us any of those things. Okay. The district governors acquired supplies from Solomon and all who ate at the royal palace. They're the ones acquiring the supplies and sending him for all who ate at the palace. So each of them is in charge of this for 1 month out of the year. That's why one might get fed birds in their region, another might get gazelle in their region. So they're not the standard. They're the depending upon region of food that you're going to get. Each was responsible for 1 month in the year. Oh, we're getting that repeated. We had that earlier. They made sure nothing was lacking. Each one also brought to the assigned location his quota of barley and straw for the various horses. So they're also in charge of feeding all of the horses. So they got to bring all the food on their month and others food for the horses. God gave Solomon wisdom and very great discernment. The breadth of his understanding was as infinite as the sands of the seashore. So his understanding and discernment, his wisdom is as abundant as the sands of the seashore. That's a wonderful way of describing that. Interesting, too. Solomon was wiser than all the men of the East and all the sages of Egypt. He was wiser than any man, including Ethan, the Ezrahite, or He-Man, master of the universe. No, He-Man, Calcol, or Darda, the sons of Mahol. He was famous in all the neighboring nations. Now, I have no idea who all these people are. He was wiser than all these people I've never heard of. That's not what's saying. The people would have heard of all of these people. The fact that we have, whatever, we don't know who they are. They were famous in their time, and so they're mentioned here. And Solomon is wiser than all of them. He composed 3,000 proverbs and 1,005 songs. That's a very peculiar number. 1,005 songs. So those would be psalms, I believe. So 1,005 psalms and 3,000 proverbs. I don't know how many proverbs are in the book of Proverbs. I don't know if all of them contained in there are Solomon, but because of his wisdom, we attribute the book of Proverbs to him. Even if they're not all his, there's certainly an idea that he is collecting them. He produced manuals on botany, described every kind of plant from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows on walls. He also produced manuals on biology, describing animals, birds, insects, and fish. Okay, so we have, like, this is, I would not go, I understand it's helping us to understand, but saying botany and biology are scientific terms, we need to use more ancient ones. He produced manuals on plants, describing every kind of plant from cedar. He described manuals on animals, okay? So putting the scientific label on them, I don't think is beneficial, because there's too often people thinking that the Bible is a science book. It is not a science book. It is a theological book. Okay, it is telling us about God. It is telling us about the universe that he created. It is talking to us from him. And yes, there are historic things that happen, but it's not historical. It's not our standard of how to write history. It's not science, because a science book is a way in which a modern person does stuff. So when you creep these words back in, it gives credence to those people that think that the Bible is a science textbook, which it is not. So that's my caution there. All right, people from all nations came to hear Solomon's display of wisdom. They came from all the kings of the earth who heard about his wisdom. So he told about the fame is going to be spread. He is going to be widely known. And now we have that actually happening. So Solomon is living up to all the things that were promised earlier. Now we see them living out.